Good afternoon, boys and girls. Today is Monday, April 20th, and Mrs. Disidore here to read the first and second grade read aloud of Gooney Bird Greene. I also have my daughter Colette here.
Hi.
And she read this book in second grade. And so far we've only read 2 chapters. Okay, we learned that Gooney Bird there she is. She's a very unique individual, meaning she's very different from any of the other kids. Her hairstyles are different, her clothing's different, but the kids really are intrigued by her, meaning they want to learn more about her. They really like her. They're like, ooh, who's this new girl? We want to learn more about her. So she's at Water Tower Elementary School now, and she's in second grade in Mrs. Pigeon's class, and they are learning about stories and storytelling and writing good stories. And so far, they've learned that a good story needs a beginning, a middle, and an ending. That's called a plot, okay? And they also learned that you need a main character as well. So Mrs. Pigeon was going to tell a story to them about Christopher Columbus, but the class really wanted to learn about Gooney Bird. So she volunteered to tell the class lots of different stories. Now, some of them seem fictional, which means they don't seem like they're true, and she just has this really good imagination, but Gooney Bird insists that, yes, they are true. So in their chapter 2 on Friday, she told a story of how she got her name. So she was named after a bird. Her parents thought she looked like a little bird with big feet. So they named her Gooney Bird. Okay, and she's going to tell another story today because the class loves to hear her stories and the teacher's letting it happen. Okay, on Friday, Gooney Bird was wearing capri pants, a satin tank top, and a long string of pearls. Her red hair was twisted into one long braid, which was decorated with plastic flowers. There were flip-flops on her feet. "You look beautiful," Keiko said to Gooney Bird in an admiring whisper. "Yes, I know," Gooney Bird replied. "Thank you, Keiko." She walked to the front of the classroom when Mrs. Pigeon told her it was time. Malcolm was in the back of the classroom. He was at his desk writing. "I will never put anything in my nose 100 times on a piece of lined paper." Remember that's what happened to him last chapter? I think chapter 1 it was. Malcolm actually stuck paper up his nose, and he had to get it removed by the nurse. So the nurse had told him to write on a piece of paper that he would never do that again. She said it would keep his hands busy. "How come Gooney Bird gets to go stand in front of class?" Malcolm asked. "Shh." Everybody, except Felicia Ann, said to Malcolm, "Listen." "Today," Gooney Bird said, "I have a very exciting story to tell you. In my story, there is a long journey, a mystery, and a rescue." Mrs. Pigeon, seated at her desk, had begun correcting some spelling papers. She looked up. "Listen, second graders," she said. "Hear the different things that Gooney Bird is putting in her story. That is what good storytellers do." Gooney Bird listened patiently to the teacher. Then she stood up straight and did some breathing exercises. Finally, she took a deep breath and looked at the class. "I am ready to begin," she said at last. "The title of the story for today will be How Gooney Bird Came from China on a Flying Carpet." What do you think about that story? You think it's a fake story?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Just like
Aladdin.
Just like Aladdin. And Barry Tuckerman said the same thing. Just like Aladdin. "Barry, pay attention, please," Gooney Bird said. "I like to have absolutely all eyes on me." Then, when the class became silent, all, except Felicia Ann, who had been listening all along, and silent all along, and almost all eyes, even Mrs. Pigeon's, were on her, she began. How Gooney Bird Came from China on a Flying Carpet. Once upon a time, just last month, Mr. and Mrs. Greene decided to take their little girl, Gooney Bird, and move away from the place where they had always lived. They had always lived in China, but now Mr. Greene had a new job, and this new job was in Water Tower. That's here, Chelsea said aloud. I live in Water Tower. Gooney stopped talking. She arranged her pearl necklace so it was draped over one shoulder. Me too, Trisha said. We all live in Water Tower, Barry pointed out. That's why we go to Water Power Elementary School. Class, Mrs. Pigeon warned. Mrs. Pigeon, Gooney said politely, let me take care of this. Children, she said in a firm voice, I cannot tell a story if I am constantly interrupted. There will be time for questions and comments. Please raise your hands if you want to say something. It's very distracting for me if you call out. Sorry, Trisha said. Sorry, Chelsea said. Sorry, Ben added. The class waited. Gooney looked at them all sternly. Then she did some breathing exercises and began again. Now I just want to show you again, like last chapter, how there's a difference in the writing. Okay, this is the part that the narrator is telling. That's part of the story. And then this is how Gooneybird's story is written in different typing. And there's the title there. They had always lived in China, but now Mr. Greene had a new job, and his new job was in Water Tower. So they packed carefully. It took many days. First, Mr. Greene had to pack 43 sets of false teeth. Then Mrs. Greene had to pack her dancing shoes and her bathing suit. And Gooney had to pack all of her belongings, which included a money collection. Finally, their furniture was loaded onto a moving van, and the Greene family waved goodbye as the moving van drove away from China and started its journey to Water Tower. Gooney stopped. Every child in the classroom had their hand raised, and even Mrs. Pigeon was waving her arm. I'll have an intermission now for questions, Gooney said. An intermission. What do you think an intermission means?
Oh, I know.
What?
Like a moment?
Mm-hmm.
An intermission means like a quick break.
Mm-hmm. Yep, so she's going to stop for a little bit and ask some questions.
And then go back to the book.
Yeah, sometimes plays have intermissions. Yeah. Yeah. Chelsea, yours first. Why did Mr. Greene have 43 pairs of false teeth?
That's what I was thinking.
Chelsea asked. The false teeth are not part of the story, Gooney said. Malcolm? So she didn't answer the question. She just said, don't worry about it, basically. Malcolm had looked up from his I will not put anything in my nose paper. His eyes were very wide. Tell me about the money collection, he said. That's another story, Gooney said.
I'm not answering any of them.
Beanie? When are you going to tell about the prince and the diamonds? Gooney asked. Gooney thought it over. On Monday I'll tell it, he said. Now there's time for one more question before I continue. Mrs. Pigeon, did you have your hand raised? Mrs. Pigeon nodded. Gooney she said in a nice voice. You have an amazing imagination, and we think you are wonderful at telling stories. Don't we, class? She looked around, and almost all of the children nodded. But I want to be certain that the children understand that these are made-up stories. So I want to point out, my stories are absolutely true, Gooney said. I don't think they are, but...
She might be like in a dream.
Maybe. I want to point out, Mrs. Pigeon went on, that of course we all know that China is a foreign country across the ocean, and that a moving van could never drive from China to Water Tower. Gooney rearranged her pearls and sighed. Mrs. Pigeon, she said, why don't we take a few minutes for research? Is there an atlas in the bookcase? Mrs. Pigeon laughed and said, of course. She went to the bookcase and took out a book of maps called an atlas. Now, said Gooney would you find out if there are other Chinas? Other Chinas? I don't think, Mrs. Pigeon began turning the pages of the atlas. She found an index at the back. My goodness, Mrs. Pigeon said after a minute. There's a China in Texas.
There is?
I guess so.
There is?
Correct, said Gooney Bird. And what else? There's a China in Maine.
There is.
Correct, said Gooney Bird. And California. There's a China lake. Oh, and my goodness, look, in North Carolina. And now it is time to continue the story, Gooney Bird announced.
That's true.
Where were we? Oh, yes, I remember. The moving van had just left China. She took up the story again.
Which China?
So we don't know which China, but we did learn that just like we thought, she was making it up. We were thinking about China, but it was far, far away. But there's actually other towns called China. There's a China in Maine. There's a China in California, in Texas. There's different towns called China. I'm kind of curious about that too. So we are going to stop there for today. We didn't get to finish chapter 3, and that's okay. But it's a long chapter, but we'll finish it tomorrow. And we all learned something from Gooney Bird. I never knew those things. They're pretty cool. Yeah, and we were very similar to Mrs. Pigeon's point of view, weren't we? We all thought the same as her, that these were made-up stories, but they're not. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this chapter, or part of this chapter. I'm loving Gooney Bird. She's quite funny. She's very, though, respectful, too.
And she's also unique.
She's unique. She's respectful. She's not shy, that's for sure. She's kind of outgoing. She's very confident, too. She's not afraid to get up in front of the class and tell the stories.
I like the details on her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice illustration.
Is it food?
Okay, so I will see you all tomorrow. Have a wonderful rest of your Monday.
Bye.
Bye.